We are getting new reports about a chilling and downright shocking escalation of ICE tactics against the residents of Chicago. In the middle of the night, hundreds of armed federal agents and police, backed up by riot trucks, smoke grenades, and helicopters, breached fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on an entire apartment building on the city's south side. They pulled dozens of residents from their homes and zip ties, including children, some of them without any clothes. They then held some outside for hours and dragged the others into rented vans.
It was scary because I've never had a gun put in my face.
Neighbors like Ebony Watson says they ducked for cover as they heard several flashbangs go off.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other. One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
They zip tied the kids together. ICE put out a statement saying they were pursuing Trinidad gang members. But U.S. citizens living in the building say they were detained too. The cops told them that if they had any unrelated warrants, they wouldn't be going back home. 37 people were ultimately arrested after agents separated children from their parents on the street. And if you're looking at this and asking yourself, how is this legal? That is the right question to ask. And it has kind of an answer. And to understand it, you have to go back to Los Angeles this summer, where federal immigration agents started pushing the envelope on orders from the White House. They raided Home Depot parking lots and Walmart lots, and they grabbed people they saw. Near one Home Depot, masked agents with batons grabbed Narcisco Barranco, who has lived in the U.S. for more than 30 years and has 3 sons serving in the Marine Corps. Agents beat Barranco on the ground, dislocating his shoulder before detaining him. In Van Nuys, agents raided a car wash, remembering this, sending patrons and workers scrambling before the 79-year-old owner, who is a U.S. citizen named Rafi, tried to ask them what they were doing.
That is when Rafi was taken down by agents and eventually handcuffed. Rafi says he was injured in the process.
And they sit on me. This is my elbow about a week ago. And this is my arm.
Rafi says he and 5 others at his car wash were taken to a federal detention center downtown. We're still working to learn more about why they were detained.
And that man is not alone.
Look how you got my hand. You're twisting that. I'm American, bro.
Yo, these guys are literally based off of skin color. My homie was born here just because of the way he looks.
Agents kept stopping people they suspected of being undocumented immigrants for no reason other than they weren't obviously white. Like Brian Gavidia, the man you saw there, the 29-year-old American. He wasn't arrested, but he says agents went through his phone for 20 minutes and kept his real ID card. Now, these are obvious violations of people's core constitutional civil rights, their right to equal protection and the freedom from unlawful searches and seizures. And victims filed a class action lawsuit. And after an entire bench trial, a federal judge sided with those victims and ended the ICE sweeps. And in her ruling, she wrote, "It is illegal to conduct roving patrols which identify people based upon race alone, aggressively question them, and then detain them without a warrant, without their consent, and without reasonable suspicion that they are with status." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. An appeals court upheld her injunction against ICE. You have to stop doing this. And so the Trump administration took the issue to the Supreme Court. And lo and behold, last month, the court's 6-3 conservative majority voted to just let Trump and ICE continue for now, as the case works its way up, to use racial profiling in their immigration raids, halting the lower court's decision, saying, go ahead. Now, they gave no reasoning or explanation for their decision, silent, except Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who wrote a short concurring opinion saying there's absolutely no problem whatsoever with racially motivated stops by law enforcement. Quote, if the officers learn the individual they stopped is a U.S. citizen or otherwise lawfully in the U.S., they promptly let the individual go. Welcome to the era of what critics call the Kavanaugh stop. Carte blanche for ICE to continue violent, warrantless raids and stops all over the country.
Apple's App Store has removed an application that helped to warn users about nearby ICE agent activity. The app was called ICE Block, and it allowed users to report sightings of ICE agents within a 5-mile radius. It didn't share personal information about agents, but was removed based on, quote, information from law enforcement about safety risks, according to the company. Meanwhile, a top advisor to President Trump says ICE agents will be at next year's Super Bowl in California after music superstar Bad Bunny was announced to be the halftime show performer. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has more details.
He's one of the biggest pop stars in the world, with the most streams on Spotify for 3 straight years. Bad Bunny is facing mounting MAGA backlash.
It's so shameful that they've decided to pick somebody who just seems to hate America so much.
Bad Bunny was just selected to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show, but he's been an outspoken critic of President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration, recently revealing why he opted not to tour the continental U.S., saying, quote, "ICE could be outside my concert." Now, President Trump's Homeland Security advisor, Corey Lewandowski, is suggesting there will be immigration agents at the Super Bowl.
Will ICE have enforcement at the Super Bowl for the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show?
Benny, there is nowhere that you can provide safe haven to people who are in this country illegally, not the Super Bowl and nowhere else. We will find you.
A DHS spokesperson tells NBC News ICE always supports the highest security events. The 31-year-old, who's a U.S. citizen, recently wrapped up a sold-out residency in his native Puerto Rico, as he told Tom this summer.
This was much more than just a concert. What did it mean to you?
Everything. This is a dream come true.
It would not be the first time a Super Bowl performance sparked political controversy. In 2020, Jennifer Lopez featured kids in cages, seen as a protest of the Trump administration's immigration policies. 2 years later, Eminem took a knee.
Thanks to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez for that report. And I want to bring in now MSNBC political analyst and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Maria Hinojosa. Maria, thank you for coming on with us. I want to just first get your reaction to the news of that app being removed from Apple's App Store, and then we've got to circle back to what's going on with Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl.
Look, Allie, it's great to be with you. And I love being up at this hour. This is usually when I'm getting ready. I know, it's crazy. It's really crazy. I just got back from reporting on the ground in Chicago and Los Angeles, precisely to understand what's happening at the community level with these ICE assaults into these cities, which are not dangerous, and certainly not dangerous because of undocumented immigrants. As we know, the data shows that undocumented immigrants don't commit more crime, but less. The only thing that communities really have right now, Latino and Latina immigrant communities, is each other. It's the only thing. They cannot really rely on any authority because they are being targeted by authorities. So in LA, you have street patrols that go out at about 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. These are community members who are actually looking at the cars to see who is out in their community. This app was a central part of that kind of communication. So I haven't spoken to community members. I haven't done the reporting because this happened so quickly, but I can assume that what people are going to say is that this is an affront on the possibility of people having a democratic response to what they feel and what they sense as being an absolute targeting of a particular community that in the case of Los Angeles, we know the color of your skin, what you look like, how you sound like, is a reason now to be allowed to be targeted.
Yeah, and I think that
to undocumented immigrants, lawful residents, and American citizens alike, like Leonardo Garcia Venegas. You see him there being cuffed roughly by ICE agents on a construction site where he was working. Vargas showed the agents his real ID as proof of citizenship, and they told him he was lying. And it took hours to get him out of custody, so not exactly expeditious. And then, get this, 2 weeks later, ICE arrested him again at another work site. He's now suing the government. The consequence of all this is what we're seeing now in the dead of night in Chicago. Dozens of federal agents raiding an entire apartment building with kids in it just to see what they can find. It's the most egregious abuse of our basic rights as Americans I've seen in a long time, maybe my lifetime. And it comes 2 weeks after Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem posted a hype video of another violent ICE raid with helicopters and grenades, this time on a house in the Chicago suburbs. And guess what? 2 U.S. citizens were mistakenly arrested. You know, there's a reason the American founders put the right to be free from unlawful searches and seizures in the Bill of Rights from the start. Masked secret police profiling people and now targeting entire apartment buildings, making everyone prove they're not guilty of something, is the province of tyrants. It is the opposite of American. And I don't think Americans will stand for it, nor should they.
Let's call this what it is. Trump has turned ICE into his personal shock troops. What we're watching in Chicago, Los Angeles, and across the country is state-sponsored intimidation. In the middle of the night, with helicopters overhead and riot trucks on standby, ICE storms entire apartment buildings, zip-tying parents and children like they're enemy combatants. And the justification for this? Some vague claims about gang members. Yet citizens, veterans, and families with no connection to crime at all are swept up in this. That kind of action is chaos by design. And here's the part that should make every American's skin crawl. People are targeted based on how they look. Brown skin, Spanish last names, an accent. Suddenly, that counts as probable cause under Trump's ICE. Agents moved on Home Depot parking lots, car washes, even construction sites where workers showed valid IDs and still ended up cuffed, mocked, and shoved into vans. The message is clear. If you fail to fit Trump's picture of American, then you're treated as fair game. What makes this even uglier is the legal cover Trump stacks behind it. A federal judge ruled these sweeps unconstitutional. Racial profiling, warrantless searches, outright violations of the 4th and 14th Amendments. The Trump White House appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court, where the conservative majority shrugged and handed ICE a blank check. No reasoning, no explanation, just a green light to keep racially motivated raids going. Brett Kavanaugh even wrote that racial stops pose no issue, because once agents realize someone holds citizenship, they promptly let them go. As if being terrorized at gunpoint and spending hours in custody counts as no harm done. That approach erodes law and order instead of upholding it. The consequences are devastating. Kids traumatized in the middle of the night. Parents are too afraid to take their children to school. Communities living in constant fear of the next raid. People hide not only from ICE, but from everyday life. That is the psychological warfare Trump has unleashed on immigrant communities, and it spreads further. Even tools built by communities to protect themselves, like the ICE Block app that warns neighbors of nearby raids, gets stripped away under pressure from Trump's DHS. This follows the classic strongman playbook. Create fear, show force, strip away rights until resistance collapses. Trump does not simply oversee ICE, he weaponizes it, using racial profiling as policy and framing it as toughness. But toughness doesn't look like zip-tying kids in the street. Toughness doesn't mean dragging veterans out of car washes or storming entire buildings without warrants. That kind of display signals weakness wrapped in power. And the longer it goes unchecked, the more it eats away at the very freedoms that are supposed to separate America from tyranny. ICE raids under Trump no longer resemble immigration enforcement. They've just become tools of control.